Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Before I dive into today's review, let me remind you if you enjoy the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a couple of ways. First, you can make a one-time donation by way of PayPal, or you can become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links to those in the show notes. And be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. You'll also find an invite link to our Discord server down in those show notes. Moving right along, today I am going to be reviewing Age of Vikings from Chaosium Inc. This 312-page hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $59.99. If you want to get that free PDF, be sure to order from Chaosium Inc. If you want to just grab the PDF alone, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $29.99. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Age of Vikings. A couple of things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Chaosium Inc. were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. First thing we're going to do is take a look at the credits page. A lot of folks worked very hard on this, so let's give credit where credit is due. This is a core rule book. All you need in order to play or run Age of Vikings is going to be found in this single volume. This is also built upon the basic role-playing system, which powers the vast majority of Chaosium Inc. role-playing games, such as Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, Pendragon, etc. I know some folks out there are kind of curious, what is the complexity of Age of Vikings? I always find RuneQuest is probably the most complex of the Chaosium Inc. role-playing games. I would say Age of Vikings is going to come in second because it shares a lot of mechanics with RuneQuest. Now, if you've played any of the Chaosium role-playing games out there, you should pretty easily just slide right on into Age of Vikings. As far as the production quality of the book, paper stock, very, very nice. This does have a stitched binding, so this should hold up very well at your game table. Artwork throughout, solid if not spectacular. There are a few pieces in here I thought were relatively ho-hum. I did find the line artwork to be what I liked the most out of the various different types of art that we find in Age of Vikings. Like I said, solid, just not spectacular. I will mention a few things, though, that left me scratching my head. First of all, I don't know what it is with the games that sort of make up the basic role-playing line. Unlike Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, Pendragon, the font is like a point or two, maybe even more, smaller. I normally don't have to use reading glasses to make my way through a role-playing game book. That was not the case here. So, and I understand you can fit more content on the page, smaller font. I completely get it. But there is a lot of empty space here for the most part, with most of the pages in this book that you could have utilized a little larger font, made life easier for a lot of gamers out there. Something else I'm surprised at is the number of errors that made their way into this finished product. And some of them are super obvious. Give you a great example right on this page. Steps in hero creation. Follow these 8 steps to create your hero. And then we proceed to look at 10 steps. Really? Just like we have a lot of examples of play, most of them really nicely done. Some of them are head scratchers. They really are. They're relatively obtuse. Now, as I mentioned, if you've played any of the Chaosium Inc. role-playing games, you should not have a problem just sliding right in with Age of Vikings. But if this were to be the first role-playing game you ever picked up or first role-playing game you ever were looking to run, some of those examples just are not going to be crystal clear. We'll start off the book with creating our heroes. This is going to be a relatively detailed process. It's going to take a little bit of time, which is fine because once you finish your character creation, you're going to have a fairly unique player character on your hands. There are a couple of things that I really like about the character creation here too. One of them is the optional history to create for your most important grandparent, most important parent. And then there's also a table for you to roll for the recent history of your player character. Now, this is set during the Icelandic saga period. So we've got about 250 years to kind of play with. The default time of Age of Vikings is late in the 10th century. We'll also get half a dozen pre-generated characters, so you can kind of get a better idea of the different types of characters. So just taking a peek at that. I will say, as far as complexity, in my opinion, I've always felt that games that utilize percentile dice for action resolution tend to be pretty intuitive. It's not that difficult for a person to wrap their head around having a skill which has a 70% chance of being successful. Pretty easy there. Now, as far as the character creation, we do have our traditional attributes here. They're being called characteristics. We do have strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, POW, and charisma. Now, we will have characteristic checks, just like we have the skill checks, and the game master will tell the player character what characteristic to utilize, what to multiply it by. Maybe it's by 5. So as an example, it's a strength check, and your strength on your character is a 10. Game master tells you, okay, it's times 5 on that. So 50, roll your percentile dice. You're looking to roll 50 or less in order to succeed. Now, there are a lot of opportunities to add bonuses to your skills. We do have augmenting skills, so you can use other aspects of your player character to give a bonus to a skill check. So you might utilize one of your devotions or one of your passions. And if you're successful, once again, these are percentile rolls. If you're successful, you'll add a bonus to your skill roll. So maybe plus 10, plus 20 if it's a critical success. Nice little wrinkles there. As far as the skills go, we have a nice range of skills. I was surprised by the number of skills on the character sheet. Pleasantly surprised, to be very honest. We get into combat. Combat is relatively crunchy. We do have a lot of different aspects to combat. We start off with our initiative, and initiative is based on dexterity rank or dex rank. If you are familiar with RuneQuest, have something very, very similar, and that is strike rank. Whoever's got the highest dexterity rank is going to act first in combat. Weirdly enough, another one of these errors that made its way into this book, the first time dex rank is discussed, it says whoever has the lowest dex rank is going to go first. And that is incorrect. It is the higher dex rank that goes first. So that is corrected later on in the text. Once again, I'm just really surprised it made its way in. So we do have attacks, we have parrying, we've got impalement, we have fumbles, we have critical hits, critical failures. So all in all, a good amount of complexity to our combat here. So if you're looking for a combat system that's got a little more bite to it than most role-playing games, you will be quite satisfied with Age of Vikings. And as you find in RuneQuest, combat in Age of Vikings is very lethal. It is very fast. It is quite deadly. And even the most experienced character can be one-shotted with a lucky die roll. So keep that in mind. We'll also get into seafaring, sea combat, raiding. Funny enough, you may not realize this, but most Vikings spent the majority of their time farming. They were not out Vikinging at the time. So we do get some abstracted rules for raids. So you're not going to get bogged down in a bunch of dice rolling and bookkeeping and things like that. Something I find very appealing about Age of Vikings is that this is a role-playing game that's just as viable for a historic take on the Viking era. Maybe you want to create your own version of Vikings from the History Channel. Certainly can do that. And of course, if you want something that's much more fantastical, supernatural, you have that as well. So we're going to get about half of the page space devoted to Iceland during this period, the life of Vikings. You know, I thought the word Viking didn't come about until the 19th century. But according to the book here, I guess the word was around, Viking, but it was more a verb than anything else. It was not a word that was utilized to refer to a culture or a people. It was a thing. So to Viking was to be pirating or raiding. Thought that was pretty interesting too. I learned so much about Iceland and the Age of Vikings reading this book. Even though this is not as stellar a final product as I would have hoped for, this really could be the go-to Viking role-playing game, regardless if you want a fantastical approach or a historical approach. Because for one, this is packed with content. And there is a lot of great information in here. So just because I've got some quibbles about the font, as well as some of the oddball errors that made their way into this final product, this is still an excellent role-playing game. It really is. Of course, the font and the errors and the ho-hum artwork are going to ding the final review score, but still, this is an excellent book. So let's talk a little bit about some of the other items that we find in here. We get a lot of information about the governance and laws of Iceland at the time. I didn't realize at this time there are no cities, there are no towns, there are no villages in Iceland. It is all farms scattered around the coasts. And of course, inland is pretty empty because it's so mountainous and volcanic that all you're going to find there are trolls and giants. Well, okay, if you're playing a fantastical version of Age of Vikings. So we'll get into that. We will also get a tour of Iceland with a lot of points of interest. And each of the points of interest also has adventure hooks for game masters too. We will get into a bestiary. The bestiary is going to include just human characters like berserkers. It'll also have fantastical creatures. It will have normal animals that you would find in Iceland too. So all throughout, we've got the mythic folk. So we have the hidden people who are elves. We have the merfolk, the sealskin. I thought this was kind of interesting, where the sealskin, they are magical creatures. They're seals who can peel off their skin and they become beautiful humans. I thought that was kind of wild. So as you can see, we've got a lot of info about both natural and supernatural creatures in the bestiary. We will have a short, and when I say short, I'm talking really short, introductory adventure here. It doesn't delve into anything supernatural going on, although as a game master, you could easily add that into the mix. But it is the Alping, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, It's an annual gathering where people get together and they celebrate. There's sacrifices. People air their grievances. They bring cases in front of the court. And that is what the focus of our introductory adventure is. And that will wrap up a peek inside Age of Vikings from Chaosium Inc. I really do dig this map, which is based on a historical map of the period. You will also find you get a poster map too. Very cool. Once again, this is available now. The hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $59.99. If you want to just grab the PDF alone, you can do so at DriveThruRPG for $29.99. Let's swing back over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. Oh, I forgot to point out magic in Age of Vikings. Real quickly, there are two types of magic. We have the runic magic. We also have the shamanistic magic, ritualistic magic. The runic magic can be used in combat. It's not immediate. You have to carve your runes, but it can be used in combat. Whereas the shamanistic magic, which I am not even going to attempt to pronounce, that is not used in combat because it is a longer form magical process. As far as the magical approach, very similar to RuneQuest and other Chaosium Inc. role-playing games, where you have your magic points, which equal your POW. You spend magic points in order to cast spells. You slowly regain your magic points also. So you're not going to see player characters launching fireballs and lightning bolts at their enemies. The magic isn't overwhelmingly powerful. It is in tune with the era. It is very flavorful. So it really does feel appropriate, but it's not overwhelmingly powerful. So there is that. So as far as the game itself, even though I have issues with the font and I am really surprised how many errors actually made it into this printed edition, this is an excellent role-playing game. It really is. This really could turn out to be the go-to role-playing game for those gamers out there who are serious about a Viking era RPG. And of course, you can take a historic approach or a more fantastical approach. I still think that Age of Vikings could become the gold standard of Viking role-playing games. If you are familiar with the Chaosium Inc. line of role-playing games, you've played them, you've run them, you can easily segue right on into Age of Vikings. If you are new to role-playing games or new to game mastering, this could be tricky. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible to learn how to play this or learn how to run this if you've never played a role-playing game, because as I pointed out earlier, I always feel the percentile system RPGs out there are more intuitive, in my opinion, for people to pick up because it's very easy to understand. Oh, I have a 50% chance of being successful to do that. Easy peasy. But there's a lot going on here. There is additional crunch that you might not be familiar with. Might take a little bit of time for you to wrap your head around it. Now, one positive aspect is, especially with combat, very, very lethal. So you will not have combat encounters running an hour, hour and a half. No, most of your combat encounters are probably just going to be a few minutes because, for one, everybody's not fighting to the death. And even the most powerful, most experienced characters, PC and NPC, can easily be killed with one blow in Age of Vikings. All in all, I think this is an excellent book. I think this is an excellent role-playing game. I do have to ding it because I would have liked it to have been easier to read the book. And I think there are far too many errors which have crept into this final product. But still, at the end of the day, on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Age of Vikings an 8.5. Once again, I think this could become the gold standard of Viking role-playing games. That is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. Because not only will it let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.